different places and spaces that you could think or even imagine. Let me know if you can hear me. That will be good. Again, welcome to our New Life Global Ministries midday affirmative. Not I, we, a vision of community. And we have a few listeners joining. Greetings and good afternoon. It is midday. I am definitely trying to how do I do this again? Oh my goodness. Uh make how do I bring people on again? I forgot. My goodness. So those of you who are on Facebook and can you raise your hand again if you raise your hand so that you could join? That way I could just tap the bar at the top because for some reason I am not able to invite anyone on to the there we go. I think I did. All right, beautiful. We can hear you. Thank you very much. That was easy. I don't know why. I was just staring at the clipboard the whole time. And all I had to do was touch it. So, today we're going to affirm community. We're going to affirm the value of community and the beauty of community, but more importantly, the vision of community. And, I thought that would be a great way to open up our strong. All right. So I want to welcome everyone to the space. Thank you, Chief Yuya, for creating the space and creating Anu and giving us a space to minister. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rahim, Brother Zach, Aki Sham. Just finished spinning something real nice early on this dawning. And greeting, Sister Deidre. There are others in the room, Sister Iris, Brother Isaiah, and Brother Cruz. Welcome, Master Menelek. So, as we think and talk about, affirming community and the value of community, I was actually thinking about also just thinking and contemplating the value of community as we were exploring planting your flag last Sabbath, right? And the planting your flag made me think about how, like you create boundaries. You create boundaries for your community. You create a vision for your community, a mission for your community. And I'm not saying me, but it's a we thing, right? And I thought about the focus on not I, but we, and that led me to community because earlier on this strong, I actually encountered someone and, like obviously talking about Anu and sharing and, I shared all these, there were different things that I shared. And the one thing they were stuck on was what does Anu mean? Right. And in that question, what does Anu mean? I paused and I said to myself, wow, we go down all of these different avenues about, the meaning connecting to this particular Yoruba culture or that deity. But the meaning of us, we really stuck out. And I had to pause and share and say, you know what? That meaning, we, us, is vital because that we, us connects to several different things: collaboration, connecting, conjoining, oath, just all these different things. I'm trying to make sure I have all the things that I need so I could share fluidly today. So there are all these other things, but I really wanted us to zoom in and focus in on the idea of community pulling on us to separate from the I, which is hard because like we're all I, but the individual is not real at the same time, right? But it is to affirm to this strong that there's a we, right? And that we is powerful. And that the we is so powerful that it allows for us to move. It agitates us out of a space of being stuck and out of a space of just the I. and pushes us to collaboration, pushes us to connection, pushes us to rapport, and also pushes us to uphold boundaries, right? Uphold boundaries that are crucial and critical and important to maintaining community. So before we even get into more of it, I wanted to ask you all, what does community mean to you? You know, what does community mean to you? And as I share, I also want to share to the guests who are coming in that, you know, when we talk about community, we're talking about ALX. We're talking about those who, I am speaking specifically about those who uphold and maintain what we consider Anu culture, right? Because that's who I identify with. So my community inherently are those who identify with me and identify with the culture that I strive to maintain and uphold, which is Anu culture. So for those of you, if you have, you know, you want to jump in and share, what does community mean to you? And um, you know, feel free to share the value of community as well. Feel free to touch on the studies that we do together. Feel free to touch on, you know, your experience on the retreat. Just pull on all of our experiences that we've had together so that we can let even the guests who are here know that Anu is so much more than just, you know, getting on the lives and deliberating. There are all these other ways that we support each other. So feel free to jump in and share. Don't forget, Anu means us or we. Us or we.
Okay, so I'll go first.
Sure.
So I would say for me, I mean, I already wrote a lot of books on what community is, so I'm not going to reiterate what I've said before. So I'll say from a personal perspective, community is knowing, having intimate relationships, you know, and in that sense, I'm saying knowing who is present, knowing their personal situations, mistakes that they may have made in the past, different things that they're doing to correct themselves, or um, things that they need to be informed of to correct themselves. You know, I know everyone's children. I know everyone's parents for the most part, or at least if I don't know their parents, I know their family situation, what their upbringing was, you know, some of the challenges that may be a result of their upbringing, or some of the gifts they may bring because of the way that they were raised, some of the ambitions and goals that they're working on currently. You know, so for me, community is being intimately acquainted with the journey of the people who are in that community so that I can properly serve as chief. You know, so for me, this community, our new community, is that it's being it's even being invasive at times. You know, certain things that I would normally maybe certain boundaries, I should say, that I would normally say, okay, well, I'll stay away from that, or I'll tiptoe around that. In the effort to assist and help, I oftentimes have to push through or stand at defense of those boundaries and let the person know you're going to have to let me in if you want some help, because you can't properly ever really assist anyone if they're holding back information. You know, you have to have full information. If not, you're just, especially if you're dealing with someone who has a malady, someone who's sick, someone who has maybe certain issues. Like say someone has an anger issue, and they have anger issues, but they refuse to let you know that this has been an ongoing issue, or maybe they've been speaking to a counselor or to a rabbi or to a priest or whomever, you know, but this is not a brand new occurrence that's occurred in a vacuum. When they don't deliver information like that, oftentimes it's difficult to really guide them. And sometimes they don't realize that even though they don't tell you, you're gonna find out anyway. Sometimes people don't realize that they wear their patterns all over as soon as they walk through the door. You know, and when you start citing that to them, they either don't believe you or they get very upset. You know, how could you possibly know that I have anger issues? Or how could you possibly know that I'm lazy or I'm a liar? You know, or that I'm lying right now? I didn't tell you, you know, and sometimes that need for control It keeps them in a very ignorant space. So for me, community and I knew was about knowing and about not having any friends in the community, but having those who know that regardless of anything, I'm not going to be your friend, but I'm going to be your chief, and I'm going to contract that relationship with you. And that means that I'm not going to tiptoe around you. I'm not going to try to make you happy. And I'm not going to tolerate any of your demons inside of this space. So that's what it is for me.
Mm. Thank you very much.
Greetings, everybody. I wanted to quickly speak about like some of my experiences with community. Like for instance, this weekend we had a lot of water fights, a lot of balloon fights with like the kids and stuff. And then other kids would come out and they join our I guess party or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And it really made me think of a community that like I knew that could possibly be much more beneficial because the people that were coming, like you were saying, some of them might have not came in respectfully or came in with certain judgments. Some people might have had their own opinions and stuff like that. And that is what made it a lot less community like or lovingly like. But at the same time, the essence of what we were trying to do was still there, and to see like you guys like retreat videos and stuff like that, it kind of like reminded me about what it possibly could be and what it could look like if everyone was on a certain page. And because my community, I would say where I actually live, today we've been trying to change our oil for a long time, but we never had the tools to do it. Well, we do have the tools, but we didn't have we didn't have jacks, right? And we have a lot of different people on our block that like respect us and we have respect for, right? So an older man across the street had given us a set of like ramps, right? So we could change the oil right now. So well, I'm about to go do that actually, but that showed me a sense of like love and respect because we've known this man for years on top of years on top of years. And since I've been a kid, since my mom was a kid, my nana and them also have a relationship as well, right? And we always help out each other. And in times of need, right? We go over there and help them, or they come and help us, and that's kind of what Anu looks like to me so far with even my classes or even these calls or stuff like that. It's like an interplay of giving and receiving. Someone's learning, someone's teaching, or or they could be like both of that happening all over the place, even off screen at the same time, right? So it it really helps, I guess, for an individual like me who like is not used to having big communities where there's maybe like one or two people or three people that you can really get along with. But here it's a lot more. It's a wide range of different types of individuals. It's not just one brand like we like to have in some communities as well. So I give thanks and respect. I actually have to leave though, so I'd like to say thank you for the space. I'm gonna go finish up the car. Thank you.
Wait, before you go, Raheem, have you changed the oil on that vehicle before yourself?
No, I'm doing it with my step pops.
Okay, so he knows. Is your mother still driving the caravan? That's what you're doing, the caravan?
No, we got that car. That car's gone. We had a Kia after that. The Kia messed up, engine oil blew on that because we weren't taking care of it. We got a TLX now, so now we've been taking care of it real well. So we're trying to get in there.
All right, good. So he's helping you though. So you already know what oil you're supposed to use, right?
Yeah, we got the oil. We got the oil filter. So we want to we have it on the stand right now. I think he's opening and letting out the oil right now as we speak.
All right, excellent, cool. All right.
Peace.
Thank you. It's so, can you all hear me? Yes. It's so good when we talk about or think about community. There's that idea of, not even an idea, it's the practice of trust, right? And we build up trust by actually looking at patterns of who we are and behavior and so on over time, and that's what we end up, like that's how we end up building that trust, is what have you shown over a period of time. And being in a community where it's close knit and you can build bonds and be able to observe and engage each other over time, and that knowing, right, that knowing actually is what helps to build that trust, because then you begin to, the trust is based upon how each of us within the community have shown what we have shown. And, like as she said, we come with all sorts of maladies and other things. And so, being in a community where it's clear, things are clear, and we're also trained to see and discern, all of these things in each other. And I'm not saying we're doing it perfectly, but also Chief is able to do that, to see where those maladies are and those um, areas of faltering that we all have, because Anu's a hospital, and so it's really important to um, be in a space, or share within a community where there is that knowing, that knowledge, and things are clear about who we are, and there isn't necessarily a hiding. um it's very difficult to hide too, because I think we're all being trained to have that level of discernment um within the community, and it becomes easier, once we know each other. It becomes easier to trust and let down our guards, but also be aware of, each our limitations, our weaknesses, our strengths, so that way, we work probably we work properly. I don't know what I was gonna say. We work properly together, collaboratively. Um, and part of that is knowing, like knowing your role, knowing who you are, knowing your strengths. Welcome us after Arlene from the Facebook side of our live today. If anyone else wants to jump in about community and its value to you, please feel free, and I'll mute out.
Peace, peace, everyone. Peace, Coxie Maria. Um, I would what you said about the maladies stood out, because I think we get those maladies from not being in a community, and it would be great if we came in, with already being vulnerable, but because we haven't lived in communities, it takes some time, and just like you said, to show and prove. One thing I like about a new community is we have to be authentic, and you really don't go anywhere without being authentic. You just really stay still, and you miss out on all the good times that we could have. The retreat was, there's a lot of learning during the retreat, but one thing that stood out to me is that we had fun, and I think that adds to being in a community. Obviously, it's not all fun, but when you have a common vision and a culture, you can let your guard down even more and have the fun safely, I should say. So that's what stood out. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that share. Thank you for that share. Oh, sorry. Oh, I wanted to say, like quickly, thank you for that share. I know I learned that a part of building up that fellowship within a community is exchanging those spirited experiences, and we know, like that kind of generates emotion is energy in motion, and we have that spirit being transferred in between each other. And so, like that actually helps to build bonds. So, just I'm getting excited thinking about it. Brother Zach, I know you were gonna jump in. Please feel free to. But I just wanted to share how that exchange in experiences, where they're spirited experiences and we can fellowship, actually helps to also, strengthen those bonds and those ties. And we get to see how each other function and our behaviors, in the open. It isn't virtual. Being virtual can be very tricky.
Greetings and
Peace.
salutations, Sister Maria, Clubhouse led. When I'm glad guys were speaking of the retreat, that everybody that was meant to be there and invited was present, and those who were not present and uninvited have to live through the video of the post. So here we are.
So much fun. You should have been there. We had mad fun, brother. We had mad fun. The horses, the ATVs, the boating, the camping. It was like the best retreat ever.
I can only imagine. I can
Oh my
only
goodness.
imagine.
Yeah, good food. Yeah, gun grenades, all of that.
The liquor. Yeah.
The what? The what now? What was that?
That's amazing. That's amazing. For everybody who was not there, yeah, yeah. We're glad that they had community together. Yeah.
Now it's they.
Let's just make that separation.
But some of the things that y'all were just speaking about just started making me even think of kind of what goes on in our new. One word I heard was trust, and trust comes from somebody being consistent, and you can consistently see
Right.
patterns of when one shows up, even like with the education implementation, that when people are going back to school and there's a whole chat room for people who like, okay, might need help with some math, or I might need help with some history, I might need help with this. Okay, who's good with that? Oh, don't worry, I can hold you down. Even with and I heard Sister Maria say, I knew it was a hospital, and even going to some people would call like a family physician. And one of the things that they asked though was like, okay, let me get some of your family history, and and it'll start to tell a story of how one can properly diagnose somebody. Now, when one doesn't know your family history, it's kind of like somebody throwing darts at a board, just hoping something sticks. So that's why one can go to a doctor and, okay, I know those symptoms, just take this. If it doesn't work, then call me tomorrow and we'll give you something else. Oh, that's what happens, and that's the side effect of that. Yeah, let me just give you something else.
True.
And
True.
and I knew it's like, what Chief was speaking about though, was like, I know you, it's like, even when he was just talking to Brother Raheem, it's like, well, what's that called? That student trial. Like, I gotta know your family. I gotta know your history. And once somebody knows your family and knows your history and knows the patterns, then it's not throwing darts at a board anymore. It's not a guessing game. It's not, me wondering and trying to figure out. I already know what's going on, man. I know your line that you come from. I know what's going on here. And ultimately, though, breaking out of that mold of, I know some of us may have come from backgrounds. It's like you don't talk about anything outside of this house. So one might come in and try to, I'm gonna give you a little bit of the story, but I'm not gonna give you all of the story. I'm gonna try and say a couple of things, but I'm not gonna give all of it. And how can one, and I think even what was said was being authentic. And when one is authentic and you say, you know what, instead of me trying to hide my belly button, let me just show you I have a belly button because everybody else has one too. And not trying to hide my story because everybody else has one too. So as soon as one can free themselves and open up and then apply the medicine that's being given, now it's like, okay, we all can get on the same page and start moving forward and knowing that our new is a bloodline, and then now, reforming back to our original form. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yes. Well, thank you for even that last piece. I knew is a bloodline. It brings me back to that question I received earlier. What does Anu mean? Us, we. And so we talked about all of that connecting to community, but then also Elohim, and we being charged to actually move toward exhibiting behaviors and being Elohim, in developing as a nation building, making sure that we develop family, and all of that requires, as you said, to kind of wear your neighbor but your belly button. But I'll go back to also the point that Chief made earlier. Like we come in maybe with anger and other things, and it's you can see it. Kind of like how people say you wear your emotions on your sleeves, right? And but I think we all do in a sense. It's just that there's a trained eye that can see them, and our Chief Jegna can see them. So we might think we're not like wearing them on our sleeves, but we do. And having a solid community means that you do have headship where that is so discerning and so clear that we are seen, and so that we can receive the corrective measures, so that we can, like our balancing feeds into the balancing of the community. We are on, I'll just pause. I know maybe there are one or two others who are on stage who want to share. But I wanted to make sure to just reiterate that we are on YouTube as well as Facebook. So if you want to listen in on Clubhouse and still share on Facebook in the comment section, feel free to, put your hands in all those places. We are everywhere. And is everywhere because we want you to know about us. We want you to continue to engage and share. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to come up on stage. I have another person, Abba Cruz, joining us on stage. I want to read Safta Arlene's share from Facebook so everyone can hear. Safta Arlene says, greetings. Our Anu community has given me a true foundation to learn and live my culture, to be held accountable by those within our community and called out on when we are not doing what we are required to do to be a part of Anu. All right, and I'll just also select that and put it up on screen so we all could see. If you're on Facebook, I'm sure you're able to see that. If there's anyone who wants to jump in, Abba Cruz, I know you joined us on stage, so feel free to unmute and share.
Bless love. Happy first day, man. Give thanks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. One of the things that was hitting me strongly from the time we started the meetup session this afternoon, I kept on envisioning a piano and, thinking about a community and the individuals as the keys. And the not so much just the player, but looking at the curator, if you may, and the conductor of a symphony and all of these various instruments that will complement a piano, but the focus is actually on the piano. This is the feature. And imagining the conductor as the culture, you see, and one of the things about community is also the culture that the community is nestled in. And, for instance, when both you and Chief, but especially when Chief was speaking just now, I remember his words to us. Matter of fact, he did it on one of the segments on YouTube when he expressed, what leaders are now at this present moment that you can actually go to that's going to teach you how to farm or encourage you to farm is speaking to you about digital currency, is speaking to you about self-defense. What are you going to do if a 350-pound, 6'5" man with a weapon high off cocaine is approaching you to harm you and your family? What defense do you have in your arsenal to actually protect your family? Like when you start thinking about those aspects and what Chief expressed as far as identifying you as the student and him as the chief, the leader, the person who is seeing something about you and knows something about you to identify what your needs are, that's actually a very paramount thing. And then on top of that, bringing us together as a culture, or under a culture rather, to say, look, there's certain things that you're weak in, but there are certain things that you're strong in. You don't realize that you're actually strong. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you in an area that actually amplifies the so-called weakness that you think you're holding, but bring that to the forefront. You'll see within 2 years. I mean, we witnessed it with some of our own members who were probably a little more withdrawn. Then they started going on the lives and so on. Now they're rolling.
that they are actually speaking to the culture and to the doctrine and science of Anu. But just thinking about the various keys and tones that we each play, and how you have the composer, then you also have the conductor, which is the culture. And without a culture, the community within itself is dead. So, for those listening who are not a part of Anu, it's just something also that, for you to think of as far as the culture that you're only seeing or scratching the surface of when you hear a Speak Now. It's a much larger, overarching concept that actually is bringing us into this space, why we're looking at the next generation of what Nubians are, why we're looking to move together, why we're looking for our children to come together, why we're making it a point for our parents and our children to meet our family. So often I put myself back on me, but at this stage of the conversation, I just was thinking about, when we speak about needs, in many cases we don't know what our needs are, and I think I could probably put my hand on a chopping block and say that there's no member of ANU on this midday affirmative, or those who are not even present, that can say, they have not received growth in areas that they did not expect to receive it. Like some of us were even oblivious to what some of our sicknesses were until we got into the hospital of ANU. So often I put myself back off the mute, and again, full joy for the moment.
Yeah, give thanks for that, Cruz.
That was good.
What stood out to me in the title and what you were just speaking about is vision, right? Having the ability to see where the community is actually going, or maybe having the ability to see who's a part of the community. Like a couple of other people that touched on having a community. I think Brother Raheem had touched on having certain people around you who you could identify as members of your community, but you may not be surrounded by those members. You may have like 2 or 3 people in a neighborhood, but I think people use neighborhood and community interchangeably, because there's not necessarily a common goal that's like forming any type of cohesive bond between the people who are in that neighborhood. You might just be living next to someone, but you don't necessarily know who your neighbors are. So that's another aspect of community, like being able to see who your allies are, or who the people who are of the same mindset that you are, and have the same goals and are driving toward the same goals that you are. Who are they? Can you identify them? And can you even identify threats to those people who you consider to be a part of your community? Do you make it a point to live around them, or do you just meet up, like we were saying, like on in a virtual space? I remember one of the things that Chief had said during the retreat, which was so nice. It was so much fun. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, brother. It was not to be missed, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It was like, we were sitting outside around the fire, which was super warm. And he said,
warm fire.
It was like, imagine if every day was like this. You see the children running around. The sisters are relaxed, and they feel safe. Everybody was safe in a safe space. But imagine if every day could be like that, and that's something that right there is a vision to strive towards. So off of that, I'll put myself back on mute. But the retreat was nice, though. Just saying.
Yes. Peace, greetings. It was really good. I just wanted to, say that again. Yeah.
Right. I am muted just to say that as well. No, I'm joking. I mean, it was amazing. And the next one, we're already planning, and it's coming soon, and so that'll be even more so. But I think the thing.
I doubt it. I don't think we ever going to. We got out last time.
Dang it, Zach. I was trying, Brother Zach, I was trying to, encourage you for the next one. Like, it'll be better the next time. But it was pretty amazing.
Really good.
the thing that I'm thinking about as it pertains to that my first retreat with our new family is just how much, it didn't matter the distance. Like, Master Manilek touched on distance and how we think of the people in our community as the people around the corner. But when we came together in that physical space at the retreat, it was clear that we were family and that there was a community. There wasn't, there's a lot of planning that goes into coordinating a retreat. So there were things that were pre-established and pre-planned. But much like in family and community, certain things didn't need to be said to be understood. And so if something needed to be done, it was just done. Like if I saw that it needed to be done, but my hands were otherwise occupied, by the time you would get over to go do it, it's like, oh, it was taken care of. Oh, okay. which is what you find in your, in community. And I think the idea of how we get there connects with that, with headship first, right? Like what Chief was saying about what his role has to be in this space, not being our friend and being that, friction to propel us to something better. Or even or maybe that friction is for you to realize, you know what, I don't like how this feels. I don't want to be here. Yeah. And that's okay too, because everybody who shows up to the barbecue isn't always family. And that's cool, you're welcome, but it's not for everyone. But for those that it was for, it was absolutely amazing. Like the videos can't even do it justice.
Right. So can't even compare to what doesn't even come close, really.
No, it doesn't. I can just think of the tandem paddle boats and how we even fashioned to connect two paddle boats and work together for the four sisters that are in House Anu. And pretty much like had to trust, to pedal backwards when one group was pedaling forward, just to accomplish the goal of maneuvering across the lake. Like, the fun was ridiculous. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it was super refreshing too. It was like, I wish I could bottle it and sell it.
And you know what was also refreshing? That I wouldn't say there was liquor, but I know that we had amazing meats. And I don't know if that's an actual thing, but
that was it.
The meat is
I'm saying.
Wait, Master Meatsmith. That's
I don't know. I mean, the whole bottling it up, we could probably try to drop ship real quick to the the West Coast, that might be helpful for those who didn't make it, need a prepackaged retreat or something. I don't know, I'm joking, but the go ahead.
Hold on. Okay. All right. So I just couldn't help but notice when you said everybody who's invited to the barbecue is not always, supposed to be there. Is that maybe what has happened with some who maybe weren't there, but that maybe possibly gave their seat up for somebody who shouldn't be there? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Oh no, brother. Let me be clear.
Oh boy.
You were supposed to be there. Okay?
Oh boy.
That's not at all what I was referring to. Just to be clear. And yeah, you know that. So.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate that.
I was having so much fun, I forgot he wasn't even there, to be honest with you.
Oh my goodness.
So we gotta roll up together on the next one, Zach. We gotta roll up together, like, because I mean, this is like a thing to the side right there, Oh, they coming for both of us now, man. I ain't got a crew. Stand up, brother. Stand up. I bet you. Cruz wasn't the one complaining about not being invited. I'm just saying.
Well, that just means you are gonna be on the next one. That's all that means. That's all that means. When the rolls call, you're gonna be there, right? Oh gosh. Sham, you're unmuted for you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just something really quickly that came up when you were Precious was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
It came up with the tandem boats reminding me of reciprocity. And I know Chief is always saying, how are you showing reciprocity to me? Y'all don't show me no reciprocity. So that's what, and then the mix today actually reminded me of an area of community that I could work on and showing that reciprocity. Like, how are we showing that to Chief as a covering, you know? Um, and how are we showing it to each other? Like that really stood out for me with community.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
even in the,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even with that, you could look at the podcast that Chief does, and I think it's like 55 or 56 now or something like that, right? And just saying like, how are you showing reciprocity, and even tying that in with the community of, but this is not just the Chief y'all show, right? Y'all not
Right.
going. Everybody's just not gonna sit there and be like, oh yeah, deep, break things down and all of that. This is why you start hearing other people even on the clubhouse where now, okay, what are you learning? What are you going to now give back? This is not no I'm just going to take. I think even it was on with DJ Sham earlier today when it was just saying like it can't be always an ejaculation or ejaculation, but or can't just be always taking in. It can't be always giving, but it has to be a balance between the two. So now when one has a community, it's like, okay, if you remove a piece, another piece should be able to step in. So now how are you building up to that though? I mean, it's not necessarily that's going to happen tomorrow. It's not necessarily going to happen next month, next year. But what are you building to? What are you working toward so that you can actually now give and help sustain that community as opposed to just looking at one person the entire time. And then when you remove that one person, then the whole community goes to shambles like we have already seen happen before.
Yeah. It goes back to that piece about reciprocity is important, and it goes back to, being connected to I'm being reminded to look up being connected to the needs of the community, because then be it, you become, especially as a sister, you become very fluid if you are connecting and constantly asking, how could you support, how can you deliver on reciprocity. And I know, like, I'll admit sometimes that's not always at the forefront, and it needs to be, because that's the one way that continuous flow of energy happens, right? That's how that rapport builds. That's how that fellowship builds. And when you think about our headship, like, three things comes to mind. It's austerity, astute, and sober, like, and constantly, to the point where I think somebody mentioned it earlier. There was a level of safety. Not, I won't even say level, because level indicates like, well, it was just safety during the camping experience on the retreats, and being, I'll say, in the wilderness, semi-wilderness, all right, and sleeping in a new environment. For some, it was new. For some, it was new. For some, it was different, and that safety was necessary. And to know that we could lean on our headship to provide that safety, right? In that physical environment, it's the same level of safety that's present within the community itself, So, and again, it's because of that reciprocity, because it helps to maintain, but it's also that headship, that sober, astute, and austerity that kind of leads and leads with vision, So, and that's a part of why I kind of labeled or titled today's affirmation or affirmative, a vision of community, because, communities, people call themselves communities or being a part of a community, but there is no vision, right? So they're just like in perpetual what do you call it, perish, right? They're in a perpetual state of, just perishing, because you don't realize that you don't know each other. There is no trust. There is a lack of reciprocity. There is no headship, or there may be somebody saying that they're a leader or heading up a group, but it isn't really community because you haven't decided on what those laws are. The person leading is not sober minded. They don't have a clear vision. So it's kind of like, where are you going? How are you moving forward? And members don't know each other. I don't even know if they could call each other members, or they may call each other members and never get to the point where it's like, okay, this is family, right? This is family, and more than just, okay, this is a spiritual family, because again, those walls have been broken down, and that headship is clear. That headship is clear. Um, Naya is on YouTube, and Naya says those heavy footsteps and loud snoring was very comforting during the night. She's making a reference to the retreat. I'm gonna just check the chat. All right.
While you're checking that,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It seems like this retreat just keeps coming up and we can't get away from it. And it seems like you guys have a very tight-knit group. What do you guys do for those who kind of feel left out, who maybe, are not, weren't embraced at this retreat? What kind of happens there?
Hey man, we can't do nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? On the boat. You see what I'm saying? When you hear the true, that means boat taking off. You know what I'm saying? You got to run to get on the boat. You think where I'm coming from? Say, hey man, we ain't got nothing to do with that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So
speak to. Sorry, my bad. You go ahead, sis.
Oh, thank you. Peace, everybody. Just for some reassurance, you've been working out. I keep that, so you'll be ready for the next retreat. But for the for the community part, y'all talking about having vision. A community has vision. So I'm thinking like when you have a vision, that's how you get to be seen. Like you can't hide because people are looking for what they need. So that's how you get called out and you get to see what you're made of, what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing.
Right.
Because you get placed in different areas to work with different people, see how we perform, how they perform, whether you work well together,
right,
or whether you just need something else to work on because that particular thing you were given wasn't necessarily something you're good at or
right,
a skill that you need to develop. But you get pushed out of your comfort zone. People help you develop yourself to be more of who you are, to be a better person,
right,
because they're in tune with the needs of the community, which helps you become in tune with the needs of the community to be able to provide what they need.
Yeah, peace. What Sister Maria and Sister Naya were talking about just now made me think of if you have a vision, like do you have a vision or do you have like a collective fantasy of where you think you should be? What came to mind was protesters or groups of people who like gather themselves around victim mentality. So like you don't know them when nothing's happening to you,
right.
But if something happens, then all of a sudden now we need to get together. We need to come together. This is a common phrase. So we need to be as one. But when it's peaceful, y'all ain't coming together. But all of a sudden now, when it's a tragedy, now we need to come together. And as soon as it dies down or the next day, when all the emotions go away, you just go back to your default settings. You're just a little bit more cautious and you get a little less cautious until it happens again. So that's what stood out to me as well in terms of the vision piece.
Are you actively working towards it, or is it something that you just sort of hope for? And it goes from like a conscious waking hope, you know, or desire, and it even seeps into your subconscious, you know, and you stop even working towards it. You just hope it happens, and you can just go about your day, and it, just magically, fall into place.
Right. Go ahead, Sister Deidre. Sorry.
Greetings, everyone. I wanted to say, Massimilian, like I think that was spot on. It's like it made me think of like the idea of at rest, right? So when everything's at rest and you can kind of tap into that collective fantasy, the vision that was given by who knows what and where, or the random, no physical forms data, right? That's the government. It's like you're kind of resting. And then when something happens, then it's like the light is on and then everybody's like up in arms. And it made me think of kind of like money. It's like when you're spending all this money and then you kind of sit and you're like, well, where did all my money go? What did I buy? What did I spend it on? And you don't know. And then but then when you don't know until it's too late, or some of us are fortunate and blessed enough to realize it before it gets too late, like this is what you do to not end up in that position again. But for many, it's going to be too late. It is too late. And then you just kind of stuck in that cycle of rest and repeat, bonding in trauma. Like you rest, then we're going to bond in trauma. We're going to march and wave our picket signs, and then we're going to rest again, fight each other, and we're going to come back, right? So you're going to get stuck. And that's why the community piece is so important, and knowing who's around you, who you're surrounded by, knowing their mother, father, sister, brother, the children, who's marrying who. Like, it's important because you also know that we share the same ideals. We share the same culture, right? And then I think that's why the retreat is coming up, because it was literally that manifested in physical form. Like, as I think Emma Precious brought it up earlier, like many of us had not seen each other in physical form and had never met physically.
True.
And by the time that happened, for many of us, it was like nothing. It was like it was like nothing. It was like, just like looking at old friends, right? And so it was like really a beautiful thing for us to be able to come together and just kind of be in the same space. And then I would just like to add that Honor retreats are exclusive to Honor members. And for those of you who are interested in coming on Honor retreats, you must join, complete an application, and go through orientation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You always on it. Always on it.
That was so perfect. And she even had the commercial voice in me.
I know, right? I mean, spot on. Spot on.
Go ahead.
Speaking to a little bit of what Master Menelek and Sister Deidre said, in those instances, it's the people who are, or even groups, those who like to call themselves communities, or so, who only the bonding over trauma, or when something happens, that's when everybody's like, oh, let's come together. It's because they aren't generating energy of their own. They're not able to do so. So it's almost like a feeding off of the energy created elsewhere to drive or to give that movement or that community momentum. And that's indicative of lack of vision. Like, and in Anu, there is vision. So and I know it's more than just fellowshipping, right? But Sister Deidre said it too, like many of us have not met. It wasn't the first retreat, but for many it was a first. And, for me, it was a first to meet new sisters that they did not meet previously. So, in that, there's that vision of knowing there has to be experiences created and curated so that we can come together physically until we're able to fully manifest the vision of positioning ourselves in a way in which we can fellowship with one another without the interruption of the secular world. And that's a vision that's clear in the Anu way for the Anu community. So, you know, it really the vision creates that drive so that no other, you know, like worldly experience is what's actually driving our coming together and fellowshipping. That is already like created for us. It's already there, you know, and so we just need to find ways of creating initiatives or curating experiences that lead to the fulfilling of those visions.
Yeah, that's love. That's love. You know, something that's very amazing is, you know, for those of us in Ireland, we were seeing footage, besides the ones that you would have also posted online, it's just the laughter of the children, the laughter of the sisters, the laughter of the brothers together. You know, that level of expression of solace where, you know, there's a level of comfort and euphoria of being together, you know.
Right.
And you know, Chief will always be our chief and teacher, but it was also amazing to see how the other brothers also took form, you know, like teaching about the different elements that they have as skills and tools,
Right.
and the support that they were able to render, and then also to watching the other sisters navigate and build with each other, you know. So, you know, when you think about community, you think about the training that one gets to prepare themselves to be together. You know, one thing that Chief has always expressed is that, you know, I teach you how to eradicate your sickness so that you don't bring it and infect the rest of the community, because
Right.
I have a responsibility to protect the rest of the community. And, you know, seeing that unfold, even though I wasn't there in physical form, and, you know, the Akizak and the other brothers and sisters who may not have made it, you know, but just us being there in spirit, we felt it. You know, you sent the ashe back to us. You sent that life force back to us that encourages us to be separate. I didn't feel it. You didn't feel it?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. You know, but yeah, that's beautiful, and it also reminds us to continually stay in form and on form. You know, because as simple as it may be, when we think, let me rephrase that. We may think it's simple to come together in retreat space, but a retreat is a retreat. It's a way that we come and we fold in together,
right,
to be built, to be sent back out. So every opportunity that we have as family to get together, we take that as a responsibility to actually fall in. And you know, for myself personally, you know, certainly every effort that's needed to be made to be present in every annual gathering, just as well as just being with my brothers. You know, Aki, Antonio, you know, we take certain things for granted, but I felt it when he had to move. You know, like, that, my brother's gone, you know what I mean? So every Shabbat we get together. So, you know, we sometimes don't think about how the community is actually developing us and how we should rely on our community, and that knowing that our community can rely on us. You know, so I will not put myself back on it, but certainly it's more than a pleasure. It's an upliftment and a build to be in the presence of all my other brothers and sisters, even though it's only virtually in most cases. But certainly I look forward to many more physical interactions, you know. Yeah, man.
Great. And again, we have guests who are not on stage, and if you are interested or have any questions, just, you know, raise your hand and I'll be happy to, you know, bring you on in so you can share or maybe ask a question or two to the ANU community. Please do not forget to share.
You know, I would say another, like, really critical part of not just retreats, but it could be retreats, but gathering, especially when you're in a space where you have some level of insulation per person, is that it gives you an opportunity to see where everyone settles. You know, because sometimes when you're not able to meet up physically to interact with each other, everyone is kind of forced to do the same thing. You know, like if we're having a study, we're studying metaphysics or occultism or some kind of scripture or or we're doing a financial class or whatever, and we're all pretty much on the same task, which is cool.
Right.
But when you have a gathering like that, you may find that some want to go sit by the water all the time. Some want to be in the woods all the time. You know, some were in the kitchen preparing food like the entire time, that they just stayed in the kitchen, you know, or some came eating food all the time in the kitchen while it was being prepared.
Oh
or
my
it was
God.
even finished being seasoned,
Who was that?
you know. I'm not gonna say who's, but so, you know, when you have an environment like that, that you make sure happens, that you make sure you foster, it gives an opportunity for, y'all can't see Sister Maria, she's laughing because she knows what I'm talking about. I'm looking at her on YouTube and Facebook. I got a couple of screens open. But, you know, like I said, when you have that type of environment, it gives everybody their opportunity to kind of settle in comfortably into who they are, what they are. You learn different people's isms. You know, like I like to have my setup, my tent away from everybody else. And when people kind of were inching towards me, it was draining a lot of my energy. That was something that made me, well, at least for people who were paying attention, may have noticed, like, okay, he needs a little bit of space. He needs some isolation. But there were other people who did the same things. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna go out here, you know. But so I think that's also a great value. You know, you learn things about each other in that space. You know, there was somebody there who talks about food a lot and things like that, and being able to serve meals and stuff like that. And then we found out during the retreat that they couldn't really prepare greens. They didn't know how to prepare greens, right? And it was the other women who were there that were kind of like,
I was thinking about that. That's so funny.
Stop it.
I was like, that's when all the truth comes out.
The truth, right? But you see, I'm saying it in a very sanitized way, though. Yeah, you know, the truth comes out. Like, oh, so you can't make greens. So
or beans.
What were you doing all this time? What were you eating all this time? Because, you know, that's like a foundational food. You know what I mean? That's like living on a continent you don't know how to make rice. You know what I mean? It's a staple of a healthy eater, greens. You know what I mean? So you see things like that where you're like, oh, okay. And then sometimes there might be people who maybe in a hands-off or a digital environment don't bring a lot of value, you know, for whatever reason. And then when they get into those physical spaces, it's like you see them blossom in a different sort of way, or you see them contributing in a different way, which allows you to not only respect them more, of course, but it allows you to really value and cherish them even more. You know, so gathering and linking up together, it just allows for a wider expression of the love and the endearing sort of spirit that we have among one another, whether it's a retreat or just going out to dinner or just walking in the park, whatever it is. But, you know, you can't be a community if you don't sit down and share a meal at the very minimum.
Yes. Greetings.
You know what? Speaking of, you know.
You ain't about to bring up that Elder Barge concert, are you?
No, but I was going to say there's a stage. It is on. There is a stage and it's on.
Stage, but we didn't invite Mel and the Barjacks. Basically,
That's funny.
Nah, Elder Barge got a lot of money to sing them songs that he's done. Just let him do what he do. Keep making his money.
We come with original pieces.
It was on. It was nothing on.
With the whole amphitheater with ice, no water bottles, actual mics.
We ready. Oh, people might be throwing water on the stage. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I get Sandman to come through.
Sandman.
No, we don't set this time around here. No.
Mhm. Yeah, and the good thing is, we know that there are people that are experts at audio and visual, so it's gonna be lit. I know it will be.
Yeah, this gonna be lit. This gonna be a spotlight. Yeah, my ear. I gotta save my ear. That's all you shot.
Yeah, we can auto tune it for everybody else, on the back here.
Yeah, auto tune and lip sync. We definitely do a lip sync situation.
But we could do karaoke. Would be amazing. Oh my goodness. Anybody else down for?
Call Scott.
This was beautiful today. Those of you, D, you joined the stage. I'm not sure if you wanted to share and jump in. Hamza L as well. I know sometimes coming off of mute can be tricky depending on, what you wanted to share. So if you want to jump in, let me know. But we are getting ready to wrap up.
Yeah, I did want to share.
Yes.
What Master Menelik had stopped when he spoke about desire. It was one thing, when I was at the retreat, the experience was like, we're all coming together off of like a fast. And, so it's like we're all cleansed at a point where like our gut is clean. So it's like, it's easier for the energy, like to move from my gut to my eyes, so like that you can accept the vision, like when you're there, because it's like we can see it.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, okay, this is this times 1,000. Okay, I see it now. Like it's hard to see it if you can't experience it. That was my difficulty. I will say,
Right.
because I've never, had to receive a vision like that. Like, okay, this is how it goes, boom, boom, boom. Because I come from the country, we have our way of doing things, but in a way in which it's all harmonized and there's no resistance. But we're maintaining our cleanliness through, fasting and coming together through that. So we're not coming that fat, right? So no one's really coming fat. So that's one thing I noticed too. Is like we look like healthy people. Like it was a gathering of healthy people, not a gathering of like, when someone's sick and we're having to nurse them. It was like, oh no, this is a gathering of healthy people. Because usually you see communities filled with people who are in need of some type of physical assistance too. Right. But this wasn't that. It was like, okay, these are all strong-minded, willed people who are making a clear decision to accept the vision and be here. So that was just a beautiful thing I seen, and I just want to share that as well.
Yes. Yes. I don't want to bring up old things, but I'll just close by saying, well, I won't close on that, but I will say in previous experiences, retreat experiences, excuse me, there were headaches and things like that, and I have to say it was really good to be in a space where, even though we had family members who like were in need of great support, we were all able to deliver that, right? Even those of us who needed reminders about being open and supporting each other and not being closed in. That's me. So again, that's the beauty of being in a space where, as you said, Hamza, healthy healthy physical bodies, right? No physical ailments that were visible. True, that doesn't mean there may not have been internal, but no physical visible ailments. And again, the austerity and the leadership in place, and that sober leading where you could get checked, so that way you keep present, right? And it isn't that like pulling away and separating of the self too much. Before I close, I wanted to just thank everyone for being in the space. I meant for this to be like 20 minutes affirmation, but I'm glad everyone jumped in on the not I, we idea, because it's more than just an idea. It is Anu. All right. So those are who are listening. If you're interested, please head on over to Anu Life Global Ministries or anulifeglobal.org is the website. It is Yom Rishon first day. We always have a new blog, and that new blog you can engage, comment. Please share it with others in your community or your neighborhood or your family, relatives, and support us. Right. Um, on Thursdays, we have a movie breakdown as well, held or led and facilitated by Aki Low. And on Fridays, we have Shima Anu, but there are so many other things happening. We are sponsoring those who are interested in becoming members of Anu Life Global. Sister Deidre has already shared that process earlier. And moving forward, we'll continue to present the midday affirmations in multiple places at one time. So, if you can't make it on Clubhouse, you could catch us on Facebook. There are all these other avenues. And one last thing, like a great podcast is Chief just had shared a new podcast. I think it was the Sabbath, that really touches on concepts of balance and so on, and also the Sabbath. So please check it out, tune in, and share, like, and share that as well too. Before I leave, I wanted to leave you with a few affirmations that are pulled from the Anu Way. um that are pulled from the Anu Way, sorry, that I am turning into affirmations, and you can too as well. The Anu Way was written by Chief Yuya. This is only volume 1. But it definitely holds a lot about the edicts and the ways that we should govern ourselves within Anu. And like, that's one thing I really love about that last podcast. It also speaks to obedience. Sometimes it's not really about the long story about why. It's just like, are you obedient to this thing? So pick up a copy of the Anu Way. The affirmations I want to leave with you for this strong, that really highlight the vision of our community and community, period. So if you say you're part of a community, ask, where's the vision? Like, where are our goals? What are we heading forward to? And if they don't have any answer for you, it may not be a community. So yeah. The very first one is, we affirm positioning ourselves in a way in which we can fellowship with one another without the interruption of the secular system. We affirm performing great works in the planet. And if we're going to perform great works, we have to be in a place where we have built each other up, built ourselves up, and education is at the forefront. We affirm maintaining fine homes on the best parts of this planet Earth. And the last one I'll share is, we affirm ourselves in positions of power and influence while fully rooted in our own cultural base, right? Our community gives us that cultural base. Give thanks, Chief Yuya, for opening up the space and allowing us to share. And thank you all for being here. Thank you on radio, Sister Deidre, Sister Arlene, Sister Nair, they're over on Facebook. And for everyone else who's in Clubhouse, enjoy your Yom Rishon. And we'll see you on the next live or something.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Give thanks.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
All right.
Peace.
Give thanks.
Everyone, give thanks.
That's love.
Peace.
Everybody.
Peace. Let me end the room.